we're going to go ahead and get started. So can one tool rule them all? So how many of you are using more than one BI tool in your place of business? More than 4?
Oh, got someone over there.
10? So there's a lot of different tools out there. And there's things like Cognos, Power BI, Looker, QuickView, ThoughtSpot. And then a lot of people where we work at Comcast are still using Excel matched up to SQL Server. But can one tool replace all those? Can you consolidate down to one tool? Today we're going to tell you that one tool can rule them all and how we made that happen.
But before we get into that, we need to talk about how all of these different tools being in our business and the challenges that they create. For one, all of the different tools require an IT team to manage the platform, as well as a business intelligence group or a group of data analysts to steward the environment. There's a lot of duplicative efforts there. We also have to continuously train our data analyst community. And incoming analysts, it's almost like a job description where you need to have 10 years of proficiency and 10 different tools just to be able to come in and be successful in the company. So that's an issue. There's duplicative data. These different BI reporting tools become their own database in a way. So we have multiple sources of the truth. And probably most obvious is budget considerations. These tools cost money. We have to pay vendors. So our BI spend goes up, and we're not able to fully put the full BI spend into one particular vendor. So it gets diversified.
So when we were looking around, Tableau was definitely the fan favorite at Comcast. We started our journey with Tableau back in 2010. We had about 100 active users looking at reports. Fast forward to 2016, and things have really taken off to where we're at 15,000 active users. And now we're sitting at about 30,000 active users every month. We have 100,000 people on our server. About 30,000 of them are active. This includes about 3,000 people who are writing reports with developer licenses. We're a core-based environment, and so back in 2010, we started with around 8 cores, and then we've doubled from there every other year, just about. And last year, we doubled our environment again and went to 128 cores. We'll talk a little bit about how we've split out those cores and why we've made those decisions. I got my Tableau license in 2014. I'm Jesse McConnell, by the way. I'm a senior manager at data visualization at Comcast. I've been with Comcast for 13 years, and I'm in Denver, Colorado. This is my 5th Tableau conference, and that's my Twitter handle.
And then 2 years later, I came along and got my license on day 1. So I've been with Comcast for about 3 years out of the Philadelphia office. When I'm not eating cheesesteaks, you can find me on Tableau Public, and I'm tweeting about data viz and Twitter at that handle. I'll pronounce it for you if you come and ask me a question later.
So then the question is, why deploy multiple tools? We know Tableau is the fan favorite, and by seeing how many users we have and the engaged community that we have. But when we said, hey, we think Tableau is the one tool, there was some pushback. And people said there's some gaps that we want to try and fill. So one of the things that we heard all the time is that Tableau is like the Wild West. Users can do whatever we want. So who has heard Tableau is like the Wild West? Just about everybody in here. So the concern would be people can find a piece of data, quickly make a visualization, and then share that out to whoever they want to share it with. And there's a lot of concern around how you govern that kind of environment. And so we're going to tell you about some of the governance measures that we put in place to solve for that.
We also heard that Tableau isn't necessarily enterprise ready because, A, I really just need my data in a table format. I think any Tableau developer is familiar with this phrase, And to go one step further, I really just need this in an Excel sheet on my desktop. That's actually a live picture taken of me after I get asked to just download it to Excel. It's pretty brutal. Some of our legacy BI tools do table and export to Excel very well. Tableau does not have an export to Excel option, so we're going to touch on how we kind of saw that deficiency and made it better.
The other thing we heard, and one of the reasons that we explored some other tools, is that users want their data curated. We don't want people writing SQL. We don't want them having to search down data sources. We just want to give you a data set, and you can start exploring that data set. However, when we gave that to end users, the first question they asked is, well, this is great, but how can I add my own data in? And so that wasn't really something that worked out. We also heard that we want to be able to burst reporting to many users, which if you listen to devs on stage this morning, that sounds like something Tableau is addressing. But at the time when we were making this decision, that was a gap that Tableau had.
So Jesse and I and our entire team, we kind of took these criticisms of Tableau. We saw the popularity throughout the company, and we asked ourselves, what can we do to make Tableau enterprise ready? And it really revolves around 3 pillars. The first being a set of governance measures, a center of enablement, a COE, and applications that sit next to or on top of Tableau. We're going to go through all 3 of these, starting with governance. And the first big governance decision that we made was to adopt a multiple server environment approach. So that's our Tableau server before we doubled down on Tableau. It was a 164-core server environment with a site over here, a site over there, and a site here. And each site is bringing their own data, they're bringing their own reports. In total, we had roughly 300 different sites. And what we began to notice was some of these sites had the same data, but because of the walled-off nature of the site, that data had to be published separately to each individual site. So it creates a few problems from a data analyst perspective. There's 3 different sources of the truth. Jesse and I are hoping that it's not stale data. We're hoping that it's sourced from an appropriate data warehouse with proper data quality on it. And then from an IT perspective, that's triple the amount of Tableau server resources that need to go into refreshing that data on a daily basis. So we're not really using our Tableau investment to its fullest. So what we did was we got 64 more cores, split the environment into 2, 64 core on Tableau Server 1 and 64 core on Tableau Server 2. Upgraded it to 2018.2, which at the time I think that was the
latest version.
Yeah.
We were the biggest customer to deploy 2018.2 at the time.
So we took 90 sites that were using similar data that we just walked through, and we moved them to Tableau Server 2. It was a single site environment, so there's only one site on the entire server, and that allows us to publish one data source at the site level, and then all of the different groups are organized into project folders on their site. They're able to tap into that certified published data source, and they're able to use it for their reporting down below into the project level. The other roughly 200 sites remained on the Tableau Server 1. A lot of those sites are using their own data, HR groups with more strict permissions. So the walled-off nature makes sense for groups like that. But for all of the different BI teams that were utilizing the same data warehouse, we moved them to the Tableau Server 2, single site, published, certified data sources. And we were able to consolidate the data sources, but also a lot of reports. And then when it comes to going into this, we thought, oh, well, we'll be able to also provide web authoring to the masses on Tableau Server 2. We have a nuanced take on that we'll go into better detail later on.
So one of the things I want to touch on here is the way we enabled governance by adopting this approach is when we had all those separate sites, it was 90 sites where somebody would have to gain access to. And if you think about being a VP or a director for a department, and there's other people publishing similar reports on a different site, you might not even know that site exists. And so by adopting this model, we're able to now see the reports that people are publishing. And we went to a project-based model, so we have our divisions, and those divisions have leaders who have access to all the reports that are being developed in that division. And it's really helped by being able to say, this isn't the Wild West. We can see all the reports that are being developed, and it's really helped out. I think we've eliminated quite a few duplicate reports, and so that was a big win. The other big thing is that by eliminating 90 sites, we eliminated about 200 site admins who didn't really want to be site admins. All they wanted was to publish their reports, and now that's what they focus on. They don't have to deal with the maintenance and everything around being a site admin.
Adding users.
Yeah, add users. And so they have their old project folder, and they can basically treat that project folder like their site. So the next thing we did by having all these sites come together, instead of reaching out to around 200 site admins, we reached out to the community and found 15 leaders who would be accountable, and we called it an Enterprise Data Visualization Council. So on it, we have our team, we have our 3 divisions, and then we have our partners in the IT department who actually manage the physical hardware. So by having this, it gives us people to reach out to who are accountable for the business areas. They certify the data sources. So when Tom showed that there's different copies of the same data set, we want to make sure that the data set that's out there is the right one, and we all agree on how it was created. We're establishing critical reports. So if a report has to go out at 8 a.m., we want to make sure that the activity on the server is good at that time of day. And then we're going to talk a lot about these governance measures that we have, and we wanted to make sure we could all agree on them. So the first thing that we did, and just to set the stage, we're going to go through all the decisions we made, and then there'll be a slide that shows all of them. So we reconsidered some of the server application settings. So we had on the previous server was a 2-hour extract time limit. And what we found is that if you give people 2 hours, they're going to take that whole 2 hours. And when we said we're going to move to 30 minutes, people said, well, there's no way I can get my extract under 2 hours. It needs to be down. When I open it up, I just can't imagine getting it down there. So we said, well, can we see your workbook? And we opened it up, and this is what we found. We found 3,000 lines of initial SQL that were creating 24 months worth of data on a daily basis. Not really a best practice. So it really forced people to think about how their data was going to be engineered, and then they were able to get those extracts under 30 minutes pretty easily. And it really allowed us to use the server for what it's intended for.
And with that, we decided to look at the way that our data refresh and server subscriptions were aligned. Previously, there wasn't a lot of rigor to how schedules were put onto the server. We had an every hour schedule. We had a data refresh schedule, a highly coveted one every 15 minutes. And that was always fun when someone with a 30-minute extract came and scheduled on the 15-minute job and essentially created an infinite loop of just constantly refreshing data. So what we did was we took that kind of less rigored approach. We said we're going to have 48 daily schedules, all in 30-minute increments throughout the day. We have a handful of monthly and weekly schedules, and those can be added by requests. And no schedules that run multiple times a day. So no hourly, no minute-by-minute schedules. And if your data does need to refresh multiple times a day, you can select multiple daily refreshes. So it allows us to kind of better track, when those are happening. Do they really need to happen at 2 in the morning?
And so the next thing that we found is if we would look at our queue of all the jobs in the queue, there could be upwards of 8,000 jobs sitting in the queue. And we'd look at what a lot of those were, and they were subscriptions that were sitting there blocking extracts. It might even be blocking the extract for that report that you subscribe to. So we reset the prioritization So now extracts are always going to finish with a priority higher than subscriptions. And so this just means that when you get a report, you can be ensured that it has the correct data.
Yeah. Content retention. So if a workbook or data source hasn't been used in 3 months, we remove it from the server. There's obvious exceptions to this, but in general, we want to make sure that the Tableau server is viewed as a trustworthy environment. So if things are kind of out of date, not being used, we remove it to kind of return to that state of accurate data. And then lastly, and this is one of the quote-unquote perks of the core-based model, is we get the guest account. So that allows anyone within the Comcast network to log in to our server without actually logging in with their username and password credentials. So in theory, this is great. Users don't have to actually be physically added to the server. But from our perspective, this is what we see. Last week, guest used the server 500,000 times. I don't know if that's 500,000 different people. I don't know if it's one person. We don't have any insight into that. And then it was always fun when people would ask for exceptions to some of the governance rules, and all their workbook has is guest accounts, so we don't know if it has the executive leadership they're saying. So what we do instead is add the entire Active Directory to our server. That proves the guest account to be useless because you can just open it up to all employees. And then we get an accurate understanding of who's actually using the reports on the server. So when people do come to us and say their executive level report needs to run for 3 hours every day, we can say, hey, buddy, you're the only one looking at it.
So those are setting decisions that we made. The last governance decision we made was really around the things that we watch for on the server. When you dig into the Postgres logs, who's written Postgres query before? You know there's a lot of information in there. It can be really overwhelming. So we decided to focus on 2 items, extracting data and loading dashboards. And by focusing on just 2 things that are the most user impacting, we're able to really make an impact and figure out who we need to talk to when things aren't working well.
So this is our report that measures extract capacity on the second Tableau server, which is the single site. So the 30-minute cutout with the 48 daily schedules paint a pretty good picture of our total capacity within a 30-minute window. So I think it's about 500 minutes in a 30-minute span. 500 minutes of data refresh can occur based on the number of concurrent jobs that we run. So with that knowledge, we're able to see, all right, well, what are some of the, by time slot, how are these being utilized? If it goes above 100%, that means delays are occurring. If it goes below 100%, that means things are running as scheduled. And then we blend the Postgres data with our Active Directory data to get a breakout by team. So these are the 4 teams that are members of our Enterprise Data Visualization Council. Assuming a 25% even split, we're able to be a little bit more prescriptive in how we approach these teams. So, for example, Team 2 has some delays in the morning. We might be able to go to, approach them and say, hey, at the 8 o'clock hour, it looks like you're running over. Could you potentially move 3% of your extracts over to one of your more underutilized slots?
And one of the great things about this was just providing the visibility. And before on the old server, people would just kind of pick whatever schedule seemed to fit their needs. And a lot of times it would just be the first one in the dropdown. So in the new environment, we actually named the schedules 01 through 48. And so now if we want to hide a schedule or make it not show up first, we can preface it with something like do not use or full if we had a scenario where they were always going over 100%.
Yeah, and this goes to all those 4 teams too. So Jesse and I are mainly focused on the bottom total, making sure that's below 100% at all the time slots, and then the other teams can kind of drill into their own data.
The next thing we looked at was HTTP requests, and so this is everything related to loading the dashboard. So it could be extracting data, It could be a viz and a tooltip. And basically, it gives us a picture of how quickly these dashboards are loading. And so what we can do is if we see someone who doesn't have a lot of views, like if you look at this, it looks like Carson Wentz is producing a visualization that's taking about an hour to run for 178 people. That means those people are sitting there waiting for that dashboard to load for quite a while. We can reach out and say, hey, can we help you optimize this dashboard so your users will be happier?
Yeah, and one thing to note too is we look at all HTTP requests, not just the viz rendering. So things like downloading data, exporting to PDF, viz and tooltip. These things are pretty VizQL heavy, so we want to make sure that we account for that in how the report is performing.
So the 4 governance decisions that we made, just to recap, are a multiple server environment, a data visualization council, some of the application settings, and then what items are you going to monitor. So next we're going to talk about our center of enablement. So there's been a lot of talk this week about building a data culture, and this is really how we've approached building our data culture at Comcast. The first thing we did is we instituted a training. So we get requests probably once or twice a week where people say, I need training. I'm new to Tableau. I don't know how to use it. I want training. So Tom took everybody through a 5-week Tableau bootcamp. And it was so successful that the first time we held it, 700 people showed up on the WebEx, and we crashed our server. We had people log in with WebEdit, and this is where we'll talk a little bit about WebEdit. And we found out that our server cannot handle 500 concurrent WebEdit sessions. So that was a fun learning. But once we got that figured out, the boot camp went great. And Tom actually recorded the sessions so people can go back and watch them later. Another learning is that people preferred to do the trainings live and then go back and watch the sessions later for reinforcement of what they saw live.
We have a weekly Tableau doctor session every Wednesday at 3 p.m. It's an open line, it's virtual, so anyone can hop on the WebEx and ask us a Tableau question. And these range from, hey, this calculation, I just can't get it working, to, hey, can you just kind of audit this dashboard really quick? I just want to see your guys' opinion. And then we also get a lot of, hey, this isn't performing too well. Any tips that you could go through to provide more, better recommendations around that. So our Tableau doctor session has been great for Jesse and I, because when people are emailing us throughout the day and hitting us up on Skype and Slack and coming to our desk and bothering us in the cafeteria, we're able to say, yeah, I'll help you Thursday or Wednesday at 3. I'll be on the line and we'll make sure that your question is answered. We've been doing, and we also get help from our Tableau sales consultants, which is very helpful. And we like having it be an ad hoc nature. We've been doing this for about 2.5, 3 years, and we used to have it where users would have to sign up ahead of time, and we found that it's pretty restrictive for our user base. There's almost a freeing nature to just being able to show up on the line and ask your question that you had 30 minutes ago. A little more difficult for Jesse and I, because we don't know what questions are going to be asked. We can't do any research ahead of time. So we have to be, think on the fly a little bit, and potentially have some follow-ups after the call.
One of the other things we've done to build our community is we have real-time chat support. So we have both Slack and Teams. And our Slack and Teams channels, we have about 1,000 people. And one of the great parts is people get a lot of the same questions, and other people in the community will chime in and help answer questions. And it really feels like a community more than just us posting about the latest updates. And we do use it for announcements, maintenance windows, and whatnot, but really it's a place for people to talk about Tableau and get best practices.
Jira intake, so our IT partners have a Jira instance where they're able to take server requests. So adding new drivers, they want a new monthly or weekly schedule, they want a new site or a new project on the other server, all of those IT requests can go into Jira and then be handled appropriately from there.
And then we also have an intranet site. So like I said, we get a lot of the same questions over and over. And this is a place where we can post one-pagers. How do I upload an Excel file so the server can see it? How do I get a license? How do I attend the doctor's session? And then we also have some server policies that are on this. So people know if they have a question, first they can go to intranet site, and then they can go to the real-time chat. And so there's really a lot of ways for people to be interacting with us.
And then last is to build trust. So it's important for Jesse and I to make sure that we know our users. Carson Wentz on that HTTP request, we need to make sure that Jesse and I have a good relationship with him so that we can approach him about that report that's rendering way too long. We need to make sure that we have those connections. And we want to make sure that Tableau is more than just your old BI tool. This is a community of data analysts throughout the company, and we're all kind of a part of something bigger than ourselves. So fostering that community, building trust, it's important for kind of justifying Tableau as enterprise ready.
And one of the ways that we've done that is by having internal Tableau days. We try and do 2 to 3 of these a year in the different divisions. We did one at our Philadelphia office, and we had around 300 people, and we have different sessions. We tried to run it a lot like a mini Tableau conference. We had an Iron Viz competition where I was up there hosting. I think you were a Sue Vizer.
Yeah, I was a Sue Vizer.
Some other people in here might have participated in it. So it's just a fun day where we can all get together and meet these people that we're interacting with on the different forums. All right, now we're going to talk about some of the applications we made to extend Tableau. So Tableau is constantly innovating and coming out with new features, but there's still some gaps that people in our community need us to fill, and so we're going to take you through how we've filled those. We have 4 that we're going to talk about today: report delivery, a portal solution, data exporting, and then I'm going to touch a little bit on extensions.
So we'll start with our app that we call Distribute. This simply sends Tableau dashboards via email as either a PNG, a PDF, or a CSV. And I know what you're thinking. This sounds a lot like subscriptions on the server. Why would you build a whole separate application for it? Well, for one, we did PDF way before Tableau did PDF. It does
They
CSV.
definitely copied us.
Yeah, it does CSV, which is a requirement for a lot of our users. Data analysts are fully able to customize the email body and schedule the report whenever they'd like. So analysts and BI groups can fully own the distribution of the report, which is something the subscription you really can't do. It's set up by users themselves. So this app's open for anyone that uses Tableau. They're able to come in, paste the URL of their Tableau dashboard, select if they want it to be a PNG, PDF, or CSV, and just put the emails that they want it to go to, and bam, it's scheduled and goes out every day, or every week, or every month. Also from an IT perspective, this is a great way of bursting reporting. The Tableau server, if I want my report to go to 100 different people, the Tableau server takes 100 PNGs and sends 100 different emails. And it does this to check for permissioning and row-level security, which is important in a lot of use cases, but sometimes the dashboard's the same for everyone, and those permission requirements are less strict. This app takes 1 PNG and then sends 1 email to 100 people. So it's a more efficient way of doing it from a platform perspective.
Another concern that we heard from our user community is we don't really want people going and exploring the Tableau server and looking at all the different reports that are available. And so we built a portal where people can feature just the apps or the dashboards that they want people to see. And one of the great things about this is it makes it really easy if you have a new version. If the URL changes, they change it in the background, and the end users never know that the URL changed. You can also embed more than just Tableau in this, and we have some export options built in. The other great thing about this is we actually use it for our Viz portal, or our intranet site. And so where we're hosting all those one-pagers and kind of reporting on the server, we're actually using this application.
Yeah, I think one of our biggest gripes with the server search, and I like that Tableau is kind of innovating in that space, one of the most used reports on our server environment, if you typed it in the search, a data quality report would come up on our server environment of that report, which usually is not what people are looking for, so this is a way to kind of curate that content. This next app is totally separate from Tableau, does not use Tableau at all, but it's our answer to the Excel export. Users are able to come in, select a purpose-built data mart, use a GUI to select the columns of data they want, apply the filters they want, any aggregations. Below the screenshot here, as you begin to select columns, it actually writes the SQL statement. So I think a nice kind of side effect of this app is that if users want to learn SQL, they can say, all right, well, what happens when I add this field? Or what happens when I filter on this? And they're able to see the changes in the code below. So after users select their columns, they're able to click export, and then they'll get an email whenever their data is finished processing, and they're able to download it. So when people want that Excel export, we're able to point them to this app, and they're able to not necessarily just get a data dump, but also curate that data dump and have it be filtered for exactly what they're looking for.
All right, so now let's talk about extensions. So we made the decision very early on that we were only going to allow extensions that were hosted on-premise. This is for a lot of security reasons. We don't really want to send data out across the internet. I know it's encrypted, but still, we don't know what the other end of the line is doing with the data. We have one extension that we have fully moved on-premise. It's from Tone at tableuxmagic.com. It's a data table extension that allows people to see the data in their dashboard and then export that data to Excel, PDF, or CSV. We've kind of struggled with extensions because we think they're great, but you really need somebody that's great at JavaScript or can move extensions on-prem, and it can be really tough to support. Like, people even come to us with questions about this one, and we either have to go back to Tone and beg him to fix it, or just say, sorry, that's the way it's going to work. So these applications really help enrich what we're doing with Tableau, with the report delivery, portal, data warehouse export, and the extensions. So that's really how we made Tableau Enterprise ready. These are the decisions that we made, and we think if you're ready to double down on Tableau and make Tableau your one tool of choice, there's some questions you should ask yourself. So those questions are, what is your server deployment strategy? Should you have 1, 2, 3 servers? How many cores should they be? Should they be role-based, user-based? What should your extract time limits be? We think 30 minutes is a good compromise, but you might have the resources where you can go for an hour or 2 hours. What stakeholders should be involved in your governance decision? For us, it was pretty easy. We reached out to the divisions, and they said, these are who we want guiding the decisions. What metrics do you want to look at for your deployment? And then how can you extend Tableau to do more? We're very lucky in that we have an apps team that we can feed a lot of Red Bull, bring them Insomnia cookies, and they will build what we need them to build.
So we've been working on this for the better part of 2019, and we certainly had some lessons learned. The first being that the desktop application is still supreme compared to the web authoring experience. And the feature, it's coming to feature parity, and I do think it'll get there. But our users notice that you can't do parameters, or I think you can do parameters now. But there's all these different features where you can do it in the desktop application, not necessarily in the web authoring experience. Also, as Jesse alluded to, concurrency of web authoring sessions crashed our server, something we don't necessarily want to happen a lot. So we kind of had to walk back the way that we were thinking about web authoring when we stood up the Tableau Server 2. We were thinking, web authoring for everyone, this will be great. And then we crashed the server and said, no, desktop application, that's good too. So we kind of had to walk back and huddle together and think about what is our web authoring strategy. and how do we want to put it out there to our users. Next, reporting layer in the data warehouse is so critically important. We saw the 3,000-line blurred initial SQL query. That is not a great practice of Tableau. Tableau shines as a visualization tool, not as an ETL tool. So the best run reports on our server have an ETL process to stage a purpose-built Viz data mart for the dashboard, and then the dashboard uses that data mart. So aggregation, filtering, it's key. And then we still have a diverse user base. We took 90 similar users and moved them onto one server, and it's still really diverse. On that one server, there's executive reporting. There's scorecards that are being accessed by thousands of people thousands of times a day. And then there's a lot of ad hoc, more experimental work. And that's all happening on the same environment, but they require different platform considerations. Executive reporting, we want sub-second load times. Ad hoc work, you might want it to be a little bit more backgrounder heavy and data intensive. So, thinking about that, what are we thinking moving forward?
Yeah, so what's next for us? We're based on these different users that we have and different report types, we're looking at even more server bifurcation. Do we have a server just for executive reporting? Do we have a server just for scorecards? And what kind of rules can we set on these different servers to enable the different use cases? Do you want one that's really VizQL heavy? Do you want one that's really extract heavy? As part of this, we're exploring Tableau Online because we think Tableau Online is a really good use case where it can always be up to date and we have a lot of the newer features for a smaller community that need those features. And then one thing we did that I really like is we established a Tableau Champions Committee. So this is a committee of our most engaged users that are answering questions on the Slack channel, and they want to test out the latest features. And we know if we're going to install new features that we need them beta tested. So we're able to go to this community and say, hey, we have 2019.3 on our beta environment, go try and break it. And then if they break it, we go back to Tableau and say, hey, we don't think this is quite ready for us. And it's really great. And then they provide feedback. We can ask them about application settings and like, hey, what if we went down to 15 minutes? How would that affect you guys? So that's a really cool committee, and people kind of feel proud to be on it because we call them Tableau Champions. So that's it. That is how we made Tableau Enterprise ready, doubled down, and made Tableau our one tool of choice. Thank you.
Thanks, everyone.